What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders 2. The update has landed. When they told me soon, they weren't kidding yesterday, as it is live right now on all platforms. Currently, some users are experiencing some crash issues. There is going to be a hotfix later on today that hopefully will address that. But let's jump right on into what everyone is going to be asking about. That is the PDS. So the plasma defense system got a change. Its attack range caps out now at 4,500. And its attack rate got nerfed down to 0.7 seconds. So went from attacking every 0.5 seconds to attacking every 0.7 seconds. Now, the first thing I want to really look at is I want to focus on the range. The range got nerfed, so what can we change with our setup? Now, normally we would use Plasma Echo, we'd use Vicious Strikes, and then whatever else. Vicious Strikes is going to get you to the range cap with just a... looks like just a pylon, maybe. A range pylon? Yeah, just with the range pylon, we're at 4,500, which means, from the way I was doing it, I no longer need diffusion on a buff beam to get to the range cap. So you could always take that route and swap out diffusion and add in some more power. So we could get, whatever in the third slot. You could get mass destruction in there, or if you had a free one, if you're only using one, you can use all for one. That is going to stack with boosted beam and destruction. There's lots of choices here. You could throw more crit damage in there. You can kind of do whatever you want in that regard. But let's just look at the base tower itself. So we're at 4,500 with just a range pylon, no diffusion. Now that is going with the way I was previously using it with Vicious Strikes. Now if we get rid of Vicious Strikes... let's see what that does for us. That puts the attack range at 2460. Let's see. Let's give it diffusion. And let's give it pylons and see what we get to without Vicious Strikes in the mix. 3075. Give it a minute here. Make sure all the buffs are on. 3813. Sorry, so we're still 700 shy of the range cap. However, that is close enough. If you're initiate boosting, we should get to the range cap just with the initiate boost. Yeah, so we're at the range cap right there. So if you are full-time boosting with your builds, you just freed up a shard slot, which is huge. In that extra shard slot, you could add in destruction. You could add in, plasma burst. You could put in any option. Plasma Burst is going to give you a little more AoE. Destruction, of course, would give you a little more single target damage and allow you to nuke individual enemies. But we get that without using anything. Now, what happens if we lose diffusion there? Let's get rid of diffusion and see what we go to. We're at 3050 there, so I don't think that's going to get us all the way to the cap. Yeah, 3660. So still a ways away without using something there. Now, what about a range mod? If we have a range mod in the mix, I'm just going to use this one just for the sake of looking at the range here. So now we've got, let's open up that third shard slot again, and we've got a defense rate or defense range mod in the mix. That brings us up to 3837. So just with the mod itself, there is no doubt that with pylons, we will be at the cap without using diffusion and without tower boosting at all. Yeah, so that gets us to the cap there. So once again, that would allow you to get rid of diffusion, add in either more power or more crit damage, depending on what you wanted to do. Now, what else would we want to look at? Let's see. How about What about if we had range as the godly roll? See if I can find something here with a range godly roll on it. There we go. There's a totem. We can use it, once again, just for the purposes of looking at the range here. Actually, that's got a mod as well, so we don't want to use that. There's one with range. Okay, so there's a good example. So we got range on this one. 594 range. This is without destruction or anything. That brings us up to, or without vicious strikes, that brings us up to 2958. With a, there's no pylons on that. With a range pylon, let's see where that brings us. That brings us up to 3668, so still a bit shy. And then with diffusion in the mix, that takes us to 4,500. So we've got some choices here, and that may actually be the choice. If you use defense range as your godly roll, you're freeing up a shard slot and a mod slot, assuming you're using diffusion. Now, even without diffusion, what were we without diffusion? We're 3668. If you're boosting, that gets us pretty close. Gets us pretty close there without diffusion and without any sort of a range shard. So that one is actually decent as well. That's a tough call. Now, I generally use diffusion most of the time, and I just always have diffusion on. So for me personally, that might be worth going and freeing up the mod slot and the shard slot. Now, everybody's going to have to go through and decide how they want to build things and, you know, decide what they do with their defense from there. But I think that is an option. Now, before we jump any further, though, how well does it all work? All right, so let's look at it again. This is kind of the default setup I would normally use. Plasma Echo, Mass Destruction. And then we've got diffusion on a buff beam, and we've got our range pylons. Now we know, of course, this is going to leave us a little bit shy. Let's let it all get buffed up there. 3813. Now, if we're going to boost 100% of the time, that, of course, is going to get us to the range cap without really changing anything. But it frees up a shard slot, and we're going to be able to add more power in there. So let's go with, do we want to go with Destruction or Gathering Burst? Let's just go with Destruction. And let's pop on in to an Elemental Rumble. Oh, right, and we got booted out. So I guess we're not going to be able to jump into a map and try it out. Now, it will be resetting to Storm Week here really soon. So I will jump in and get things dialed in and test it out there in its old form and with a suggested new form. However, from what I'm seeing here so far, you're going to want to make some tweaks, and I think you're going to gain more power, but obviously you lost a ton of range. And I feel like with that range being lost, the main thing that I believe... Now, this is just theory crafting, of course. I have not tested it out yet. But I think you're still going to be able to use the PDS exactly the way you were using it before. But I think the maps are going to take longer to run. I feel like that's it. Because we lost all the range. The enemies are now going to have to walk all the way down the lane to get into range of the PDS. And then we're going to be hitting them harder than we were hitting them before per shot. And I think it's going to work out to more DPS, even with the loss of a little bit of attack rate. You know, we lost, we went from 0.5 to 0.7 on the attack rate, and we gained 42% power out of it. So when we just look at damage alone and not look at the range, I didn't do the math on that, but I think we actually come out a little bit stronger than we were before in this configuration here. Now, as I mentioned, there's lots of options. You could throw a defense range godly roll in. You know, if you're not going to be boosting all the time and you want to run around on another character or whatever, then of course you're going to want to get to the range cap without requiring the boost. So then you're going to want to, you know, you're going to want to do something else. I think that is actually probably the best case option for going with a range godly roll, would be that when you don't want to boost and you want to run around and play actively. If you're going to do that, you can either use one of the shards, or you can go with that godly roll. You're going to be able to get to the cap on range without any problem. But let me know what you all think. I'll be going through lots of stuff with this update, particularly as soon as things stabilize a little bit, and hopefully there's a hot fix here. But let me know what you all think so far about the changes. Some good quality of life in there. I do have questions on my thoughts on the color borders. I think it's a huge quality of life addition, but I also think there's too many colors. Like, I mean, let's be honest. If it's below 90% secondary roll, it really doesn't matter. They're all in the same bracket. So I feel like, really, for less kind of eye bleed in trying to search through the various items, you know, you're looking for this purple border here, is what you're looking for there. But as you look through, you know, do we really need all these different colors? I guess is my question. Because there's just a lot of them. I feel like if everything had a gray border, but then if it was 90% or above, it had its own color. And then maybe if it was 99% and above, it had a different color. I feel like that would be way better. And it would be less to look at. Where right now, you know, obviously this is day one of the update too. It's going to take some time to get used to it. But right now, I feel like this is a little bit much. You still kind of have to look through everything, because the colors don't pop. You know, they don't pop out. In fact, I feel like this neon green here pops more than the purple does. And you know, that's a perfect roll, of course. So I'm assuming that would be a 99% or higher item as far as the color border. Where I feel like this one is more visible with the green. So let me know what you all think on that as well down in the comments below. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming. We are going to deep dive into all the things here with this update and get things dialed in. But PDS, try them out, y'all. They're probably still good. I've yet to run a map, so I cannot say either way, as I've been crashing every time I try to run a map while recording. But I think that the PDS is still going to work just fine, just as lazy mode as it was before. But I think the maps are going to take longer to run. And that is really the only thing that I really think so far is going to be the big change with the PDS. But we will test it out. So more to come on that one. So thank you all once again. Happy update day. And I will see you soon. Take it easy.